Hello, everybody. College Countdown here. It is Monday, the 8th of December, 2025. I am Josh Neighbors. Glad to have you alongside with us. 365 Sports College Countdown here, part of the 365 and the Rogue Media Networks. Find us wherever you guys get your podcast. On Twitter at CCPodcastJN. I'm at Josh Neighbors _ Like the show. Download the video, download these shows if y'all cannot watch us here on YouTube, and then also find us wherever y'all get your podcasts as well. Okay, so it's the Monday after the college football playoff rankings are out, and everybody's having the debates about Alabama versus Notre Dame, Miami, Notre Dame. This stuff's been going around, and Jack Allen and I had this conversation a while ago, and I was on the Miami side of things just from it was not like who's going to end up being right. It was more of a, what side of the aisle are you on? I'm just a believer that there's not enough data points to ignore a data point, right? So head to head for that matter. So the issue I want to say with this is one thing, is that at one point in time, Hunter Yurachek had told us that Miami and Notre Dame had been compared, and Notre Dame was ahead of them, I think, by 2 spots in the rankings at that point in time. The only thing that switched is the fact that there weren't teams between them anymore. So, I think that the teams were stuck between them to justify it. And then once they got stacked together, they couldn't justify it. And I think that's a problem to me, obviously. I think we're heading towards a place where this committee is going to go away. They're going to find a better system for ranking these teams, because the idea, but this is what people have to understand, like, this is a TV product. So the entire idea of the CFP TV show and them coming out with rankings every week and then defending the rankings is just kind of ridiculous. I think the idea of 2 sets of rankings, one that is halfway through and one at the end, is totally acceptable. It's totally fine. I think that's a very normal thing to have. I think a system where you'd have, honestly, kind of a BCS style where it's a mixture of multiple polls, I think would be really smart, to have a combination of something like, hey, do a combo of S&P plus the AP poll plus, FPI. Like, if you wanted to do some combination, make sure the math works out, that's fine. But I mean, I don't know, I don't know if sending one person out is the right thing. Honestly, I kind of view it like officiating. I'm a big believer at the end of every single game, one person from each team's press pool should be able to go and talk to one official. And so I think that, a system like that where, I wouldn't mind having a 7-person committee and you putting all of them, almost like, not that they're on trial, but like, bring them all in, have them discuss, have 3 of them come in, whatever it is, and discuss it, just so it's just not one guy taking bullets, because we don't know, we know what the process is like because journalists have been able to be a part of it, of the mock ones, but we don't really know what the process goes on. And every committee is different, and the way they manipulate the rankings too, I think is a bit frustrating. Like, I'm not too mad about the rankings this year. I'm mad about the logic beforehand. We're matched up. If you're going to tell me those 2 teams were matched up and compared, then and then in the end, you ultimately default to that. Like, there was no reason in really faking before. I do think it is wrong, the idea of having them, majority of the year be behind, right? Like, it just didn't make much sense to me to have them behind. And then another thing that I'm frustrated about is that I was listening to Cover 3 today, which y'all know is my favorite podcast. And I know the first round games aren't amazing, but more access is what we want. NIL has caused the sport to be more balanced. There's actually more good teams than there ever were before. Case in point here is that Indiana is the 2nd most losing program in college football history. And we watched them go out in the field. It was not some Cinderella 16 beating a 1 App State shocks Michigan type situation. That was not what we watched. What we watched was, 2 pretty balanced, both teams had playmakers, both teams had good quarterbacks, both teams, had good fronts, really good defenses. And Indiana made a couple more plays than Ohio State did. The receivers got free. Then there was a great slot fade there that Joel Klatt saw coming, and called for there. And like they went out there and they beat Ohio State, and their defense is legit. And you're not going to see those teams be as big of hammers as they were in the past. This is not the case anymore. The best quarterback in the country next year, I believe, is committed to Houston. If I am correct, like the talent is just a bit more spread out, and that's a good thing. People can lament like the players not deserving certain amounts of money yet, but hey, if people want to pay kids $50,000 in high school to not flip their commitment, that is their prerogative. And so they want to go ahead and do it. Let them go ahead and do it. I don't think we should be telling them, no. We don't need that. No, I don't think that we should be telling them at all that that's the way it should be, done. Because if people want to spend their money on that, which they keep doing, let them spend their money on that. Let them do it. That's what they want to do. Let them do just that. And so, that's leveled out the playing field of the sport a bit. And the college football playoff with 12 teams allowing, 5 top conference champions, and like this also allows the sport to balance out. The ACC was not good. You know what I mean? The ACC was not a good conference this year. And, I know James Madison has a strength of schedule of 123. But, it's not like the ACC teams had a great strength of schedule, right? I think UVA and JMU would probably be a very, very close game. But no ACC team took care of business enough in a meaningful way that really, that earned them the playoff spot, right? Like at least from a standpoint of winning the conference. I think Miami did. Actually, their schedule, well, to me, was definitely good enough for them to get in. But you look at the ACC teams, and you look at them in there, just looking now. All right, so Georgia Tech 68, UVA 79, Pitt 50, Louisville 53, NC State 37, SMU 66, Wake 75, Clemson 62, Duke 74. It's not anywhere near as bad as JMU's is, but like the ACC was not a super good league this year. And look, James Madison, last man standing, that's fine. Like, I don't think JMU or Tulane will beat some of the big boys. The gap's still too big, but the gap is closing, not between those schools, but between other schools. And look, if we have to cut it off and do a super league, it's 40, 50 teams. That's fine. I prefer we don't do that. I like it when everybody in the sport is involved. Like nobody has a problem with basketball, the fact that we've got feeder schools in basketball. I think the idea of a feeder school in football is hard, but like I made this point earlier, VCU basketball has been feeder forever. VCU has lost like 6 or 7 coaches: Will Wade, Shaka Smart, Mike Rhodes, Brian Odom, Anthony Grant, Jeff Capel. I mean, they've lost coach. And they lost Capel, they lost Grant, they lost Shaka, they lost Will Wade, they lost Mike Rhodes, they lost Brian Odom. I mean, they have lost like 6 coaches in the last 20, 25 years. And that's been the nature of the program. App State's, lost coaches repeatedly. Memphis, has just lost back-to-back coaches as well. Some of these programs, that's just the way it is. But they still do have a seat at the table, right? They're still being allowed to have a seat at the table. And now we're going to get both James Madison and Tulane in the playoff. And look, do I like their chances? No, but they're going to be there. And we've seen a bunch of blowouts anyway. It's not like a lot of these games were competitive. I mean, you go back to the 2024 CFP. Go back last year, right? 2024 CFP round 1. All right. If you go back to last year's first round of the college football playoff, and if you remember what the results were, all right, these were not competitive games. They were not. Okay. Notre Dame 27, Indiana 17 was not competitive. It ended up being a 10-point game in the end. No. Penn State blew the doors off SMU 38-10. Texas beat Clemson 38-24. Ohio State beat Tennessee 42-17. So we had a 25, 14, 28, and 10. We did not have a single one-score game in round number 1. In round number 2, we had 17, 8. And that was Texas and Arizona State, which was thought to be maybe the biggest mismatch out of all. Actually, it was. Heading in, it was the biggest mismatch in terms of spread, maybe that or Penn State and Boise State out of all those games. Then you had 13 Notre Dame. Let's see. Notre Dame beat Georgia by 13. Ohio State beat Oregon by 20. Texas 8 over Arizona State in the game they should have lost. And 17. right? I mean, these games, generally speaking, and the rest of the way was pretty close. I think it gave us close games in the end, right? Texas, Ohio State was a close competitive game. Notre Dame, Penn State, close competitive game. And Penn State, Ohio State was, I think Ohio State kind of led the dance the entire way. It ends up being a touch close there towards the end. So point being here is that this college football playoff system, I like it at 12. I actually don't want it to change. I liked the 12-team college football playoff. I like the 5 AQs and the 7 outside, and I think it fits with the way the sport's going right now. I'm fine with going to 16. If you go to 16, kill conference championship week. Don't do it. I don't need to see it. I don't need to see these extra games. There is, I forgot what Alabama was going into the game. Alabama, to me, just ends up making very much sense. And so that's my frustration. These games are necessary for television revenue, but totally necessary for the sport. We don't need them. And I think it's something that, we should start with. And everybody's pushing for tour games. And let's say this. Let me say this to everybody out there who posits things like the kids are just in this for money. It's all for the kids. If they go to 24 games, 24 teams rather than the college football playoff, okay, which the FCS does. You cannot tell me that they care about player safety, and also you cannot complain, secondly of all, about the kids just chasing the bag. Because, as I always say, who are they learning it from? 24 teams in the college football playoff on top of a 12-team season. And those 12 at the end, those last few at the end of the college football playoff, Alabama, Clemson, that's going to be a physical fist fight. Georgia, Notre Dame, and you're going to do that 4 or 5 times? You're going to play 17 games? You're telling me the kids, number one, shouldn't be paid. Obviously, they should. And number 2, the kids chasing the bag. Well, yeah, guess what? It's violent. I'll tell you something this weekend that I noticed. So I went to a championship game. I called these games this weekend, and I'm actually about 3 minutes away from the stadium right now, where my girlfriend's house is there. And I'll tell you all this, that the 7A championship game, the highest classification here in Arkansas, featured the Bryant Hornets and the Bentonville Tigers. Okay. Bryant is one of the best 15-20 teams in the country. Their entire a majority of their defense is going to, I think their entire starting defense is going to go play in college. They got 2 brothers on the edge who are really good. They got guys committed to Oklahoma. They got guys committed to D1, D2, Arkansas, Missouri, all over the place, a bunch of positions. Okay. And they were fast and they were violent. They knocked the Bentonville quarterback out of the game in the very first play. They then eventually got to the 3rd-string quarterback because, that the 2nd-string quarterback got dinged. And this is against a Bentonville team that was 12-0. The team they were playing was 12-0, undefeated, and, it was pretty big across the offensive line. And it was such a mismatch. It was a pretty violent game. The quarterbacks were just getting absolutely just terrorized. And, they were getting killed back there, physically killed back there. And to me, I think the concussion knocked the first kid out. To me, it's a reminder, football is very violent. And these kids don't get to play. The idea that they're 17, 18, and they don't deserve the money yet, to me, is ridiculous. Because I hope to be doing radio and podcasting and covering sports into my 50s and hopefully into my 60s, God willing. These kids, God willing, will be in their 30s playing football, would make them the top 0.0000001% of football players in America if these kids get to play professional football in some capacity past the age of 30. Okay. And 30, I'm 2 years away from 30. Those guys don't get to play football after the age of 30. And so for these guys, a chance to make money, that's fine. If people who run the sport make the money, that's fine. I do not want to hear fans complain anymore. I'm so over hearing people complaining about the kids. And I'm tired. Gene Taylor the other day saying, man, good people like Chris Kleiman leave the sport. We got to get a hold of this thing. Okay, every coach and administrator that says we got to get a hold of it, give me some ideas. Give me some concrete things that we can implement, because all I hear is calendar number one, which is correct. And we got to do something about this. We need some guardrails. And the guardrails that they tried to pass in Congress were bullshit. They were total bullshit. They had an last week, the SCORE Act was not even voted upon in Congress. It had an antitrust exemption for the NCAA, an antitrust exemption. And the NFL has an antitrust exemption. They've got one because under the 1961 Broadcast Act, they negotiate all their broadcasting rights for all the teams. So from that standpoint, they are a league, they are a business, they are that. The NCAA, they've got a separate TV contract for the championship. They've got a bunch of separate contracts for every single one of their conferences, and all three of their divisions have separate television contracts. And also they put on other events. Their main function is to put on football and basketball. Well, not football anymore, but basketball, baseball, softball, all those championships. That is their primary function. So do not come in here and tell me they deserve a antitrust exemption. Also, they try to cap NIL, and in this bill, it said as well that if the state's attorney general deemed an NIL agreement harmful, he could break away from the federal statute to go and break up the deal, basically, to deny the deal. And we had a congressman who was very willing, and we're very happy, came on, I forgot his last name, Bruce, I forgot his last name, but he came on last week. And described his bill as very, very giving of his time, very thoughtful at his answers. But he said, we have to undo what the Supreme Court did. And the undo the Supreme Court was a 9-0 decision. So we're trying to undo the checks and balances because we don't like what happened. The SCORE Act sucked. If the SEC and the NCAA are behind it, guess what? It's probably not good for the athletes. And guess what? It's probably not going to work because the court repeatedly has ruled in favor of the athletes. You know why? Because they don't have any rights. They've got no rights, right? But they're starting to fight for them now. And as they bring up case by case, they're being granted those rights that I very much think that they deserve. Finally, they woke up. And look, I know it doesn't give you the warm just because the cat's out of the bag, like, I'm sorry, folks. But also, I still love watching the games, man. I still really enjoy watching the games. Like, Indiana and Ohio State's still good. Virginia and Duke, man, the Duke people were thrilled to beat Virginia. The 8-5 Duke Blue Devils were thrilled. Great for those kids. What a crowd at the Big 12 title game that we had between BYU and Texas Tech. You know, I mean, these games matter. These games are important. The people care. Like, we all still care. The sport is not ruined. If your team's good, you're happy. If your team sucks and doesn't spend any money, like where I live right now in Arkansas, guess what you're going to say? You're going to be like, the sport blows now. But guess what? If you're Ole Miss and the playing field's been leveled as of late, you're going to be like, hell yeah. And I'm more towards the hell yeah side of things. You know, my Missouri Tigers haven't gone to the playoffs yet, but they're spending money and they're a lot better than normal, which I enjoy that. Even if they weren't, I wouldn't be that mad about it. But just because your school's broke doesn't mean that the kids shouldn't be paid, you know? I can't get down with that. So the point with all of this being that, you know, like the adults in the room are the ones chasing money. That's fine. Be fine with the kids doing it too. All right. The adults chase it. That's fine. I don't want to see 24. I'm anti-24. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And let me know if you think they should go to a 2014 playoff. I don't think they should. 16 is my cap. Kill conference championships. And then figure out a different way other than the committee. Let me know what you think. Follow us on social media at 365 College Countdown. Also, I'm at CC Podcast JN, at Josh Neighbors _ Jack Allen will be on the show coming up later this week. It's always fun. Make sure you catch that. All right, folks, we'll talk at y'all manana.